and we are on the air live coming to you high above the metropolis below at Stately Torch Tower. Hello, everyone, and welcome once again to the only way to spend your Saturday here with us on Johnnie Torch Live. Johnnie Torch Live number 71 today. Can you believe it? Number 71. 71 live broadcasts have been made. Hopefully the sound quality is keeping up, because for a while there I had to abandon doing the live stuff and I tried to do it on my old computer. Of course, that saga's been going on for a long time. Sound is probably a little bit better on that computer, but then again, it's really difficult to work to my satisfaction. So we are doing it on the new computer, and hopefully it sounds well, or well enough. Thank you for joining the show. Starting a couple minutes early here, but we got a lot to get to today. An awful lot to get to in This Week in Comic Book Television. Of course, several shows still on, even though the season finales are starting to trickle in. We had Legends of Tomorrow last week with the final episode of the season. This week, Black Lightning's last episode of the season. And they're all coming back, which is great to hear. Before we get into the first order of business doing the show, and I'm going to try to make the show a little bit more fast-paced, because I know we got a lot of shows, and I'm going to try to do that 10-minute format again, where I won't try to drone on too long with the notes and just get to the heart of the shows, bang them out fast, and hopefully we'll get to the salient points of each episode. First order of business, of course, I finally began coloring on the 5th issue of Bullets Bourbon Comics. That's something that has been in the making for a while. It took me a long time because I'm not as familiar with doing the coloring on the computer, because I haven't done it in a long time. So I had to get used to coloring with GIMP all over again, which wouldn't be my first choice for a coloring program. If you have any suggestions or recommendations, you can let me know in the comments below or on my Twitter page. You can find the link in the description below. But resources are going to have to force me to use GIMP again, I think, for this issue, which means it's going to be very time-consuming. I spent 3 hours last night, and the functionality of it is not very conducive to speed or satisfactory results. But we shall persevere. We shall stride on, as they say. And hopefully we'll have this book out to you by the end of the year. I am shooting for hopefully early fall. But we will see how that goes. All right, also want to remind you of my convention circuit, the Comic-Cons that I'll be hitting so far. We have the Peabody Institute Library on May the 19th, which is in Peabody, Massachusetts. I'll be there from 10 o'clock to 4 p.m. on Saturday of May the 19th. So by all means, come by and see yours truly, and you'll finally find out what I look like, if you don't remember from one of the con interviews I posted last year. But, and if you can't come to that one, I'm going to also be in Nashua, New Hampshire. So this is a 2-state convention tour. Not fooling around. I mean business this year. And we're going to be hitting New Hampshire's Radisson Hotel in Nashua, New Hampshire, June the 10th at KidsCon, which is going to be very exciting. I hear there's going to be a lot of cool stuff there for one and all. And I, of course, will be assembling said goodies and Adventures of Bullets Bourbon comics that I'll be signing and submitting for your approval, as always. So that one will be June 10th from 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. And that will be in Nashua, New Hampshire. Of course, you can check out the link in the description below to find my convention travels on the front page of my website, The Adventures of Bullets Bourbon Comics. Of course, you don't want to miss all the excitement with The Adventures of Bullets Bourbon, as he takes on his 2 most fiercest enemies, Carrot Top and Pencil Neck, in the issue we have up there right now called Street of Dreams, where you'll be able to find a preview, a 2-page preview, and it's on the free preview page. If you look at the top of the front page, you'll find the link there, and you can get a taste of what is in store for Bullets Bourbon. Of course, this is a plot among all villain plots of all time, this is one of the greatest, because Carrot Top has synthesized Pencil Neck's erasing powers and imbued it onto a rocket, a Pencil Neck rocket that is going to completely erase the Capitol from existence. Bullets Bourbon, of course, is pressed into service by the United States government, a black ops operation, as they are commonly referred in fiction. And he gets to put his master of disguise, his mastery of disguise, into full use as he goes undercover with the lovely Desiree Miller, the songstress populaire. And Bullets, of course, is smitten with her quite strongly. And you'll have to take my word for it. From there on, the adventure ramps up to exciting levels unknown in the history of comicdom. I might be a little biased, but that's my take on it. See if you don't agree, and pick up your copy of The Adventures of Bullets Bourbon Private Eye on my website, in the link in the description below for your copy. All right, and so we continue on here now with the order of business before us, which is This Week in Comic Book Television. Right on the nose, 4:30. I did all the promotional stuff in 6 minutes, got that all out of the way. Now we're going to talk about some of the stuff that happened in the past week. And I got to be honest with you, not a very great week in comic book television. I wasn't highly impressed by too many of them. We'll get to these stories one by one, but let me know what you think in the comments about this week in comic book television. We're going to start off with the return of the Maid of Might herself. Supergirl returns to the airwaves after a pretty lengthy hiatus. She was gone from our view screens from, I don't know, probably from about January to now, a couple of months. So that was a pretty difficult absence to have to deal with. Okay, so this episode is humorously titled Shot Through the Heart. Now, it's a play on words, of course, because Winslow's name is Shot, and of course, Shot Through the Heart. Bon Jovi. I don't have to spell it out for you, do I? But that was pretty funny. Also, another reason why the title is probably musical is because the show starts off with the whole cast karaokeing. And it probably shows my age because I didn't recognize one song except for Wynn's aborted Take On Me from Aha. And Carl Lumbly doing a pretty mean Elvis. That was pretty cool, though. But I have no idea what the other songs were. Oh, wait a minute. I think Alex was singing Cyndi Lauper. Or Celine Dion, if you prefer that version. I Drove All Night. I got to do my Luke Costello impression of him singing I Drove All Night one of these days, but I'll save that for some other time. Okay, so the story revolves around Wynn's father, the Toy Man, a famous Superman villain, kicking the bucket. Supposedly, I don't know, it's one of those things where we never see the body, and in the comics world, if you don't see the body, you know, he can come back. We don't know, but apparently he's dead. And as we got the picture up here, Wynn is at the funeral and the casket blows up. So if he was indeed in there, which I guess apparently he was, he's certainly dead now. Let's see. So one of the things in my notes I want to make a point of is this is the first time I think we see Jimmy and Wynn together in a scene all season. And I might be the only person that missed that dynamic last season, because they seem to be purposefully pushing Jimmy away from the Guardian costume. A lot of people didn't like that, I guess. I didn't have a problem with it because Jimmy is honestly very useless otherwise. That's not a shot against him or against the actor or whatever. It's just there's nothing really for him to do. He's sort of the de facto leader of the Cat Grant publication, whatever it's called, but there really isn't anything for him to do, and that's why they're pushing him in this sort of ill-conceived romance with Lena Luthor that I think even ardent fans of the show are not really fond of that either, because it's just one of those things where it seems like when you've got a character with no purpose, let's push him into some kind of romance because that's about all we can do with him, and that's what it feels like. All right, so a lot of subplots going on here. And Jimmy's in action in this episode too. He's taken on a bunch of flying monkeys, and he's not even in costume. I don't know. This would have been the time maybe to put him back in costume, unless they're saving that for some kind of season finale thing. It would be different if they had him discuss why he wanted to stop. But from all I know, he was high on the concept last year, and this year it's like poison to him. I don't know. All right, so subplots. Let's get into some of these subplots. Mon-El tells Kara that he's on the outs with the missus. And my first reaction is, Kara, stay the heck away from this. You don't want to be that girl. Supergirl ain't that kind of girl. But apparently, Saturn Girl, as we learned last episode, which was, if you don't remember, several months ago, so I don't blame you for not remembering, but apparently she and Brainiac 5 had some kind of plot as to why they were coming to the past. I can't remember exactly what it was either, but but they didn't let Mon-El in on the plan, and so he is feeling very let down. And so all through the episode, he's trying to sort of have a shoulder to cry on, so to speak. And Kara has a nice shoulder to cry on. I don't want to say anything here, but I'm a guy. I know these things. Okay, I notice these things. So now the main plot here, we have, let's get to this. Wynn's mom comes back and he's upset with her because she left him as a child. I honestly am so sick of this trope of the grown child with abandonment issues. To be totally honest with you, I wasn't looking forward to this. To their credit, they did it as well as they could. I can't remember the actor's name, but Winslow, he's a good actor, this kid. He did really well with this part. Not particularly engaging to me. I thought the actress playing his mom wasn't particularly effective either, but they made the most of it. I don't know. And of course, she had to leave because Winslow's father threatened his life. Being the toy man, he would have killed him or something. And Winslow don't seem to get that message very strong or clear, and it takes basically the whole episode for him to figure something out that most of us probably would have understood fairly early on. But again, that's the nature of drama and so forth. All right, let's take a look at the other subplot, which is John Jones and his father. I can't remember what his name is on the show, but Carl Lumley, of course, the original Martian Manhunter in the Justice League DC animated world. They invite Alex over for dinner because, Jean's father doesn't acclimate well being a Martian to the society or whatever. So Alex goes over for dinner, and Alex uncovers that he's basically getting Martian dementia, Martian Alzheimer's, maybe, I'm not sure. But and this turns into sort of a heated discussion, so to speak, between the two. And I thought it was pretty comical. Sort of the next day when Jean confronts her about this, and she's like, well, your dad chewed my head off and threw me out, but I had a wonderful time. It just seemed very oddly strange. Now, understandably, she's not going to want to, force the subject about what the argument was about, since it was apparently none of her business. But, I just think she played that a little too cheerfully. It didn't seem natural. It would be one thing if she said, oh, I can't talk about it or whatever, something like that. But she seemed like she was very exuberant in the evening, which turned out to be pretty much a disaster. So I don't know. That was a pretty strange choice, I guess. Alex was great, though. Alex was great in this episode. She hasn't looked as good since the first season, and I think it's because maybe they finally took that, the albatross over her head of Maggie finally off, and she's actually smiling again. She actually looks like she's enjoying herself. So that was something I appreciated after, I don't know, a season and a half having to deal with the Maggie drama. But I don't know. Again, that's just me. Okay, let's see. They also talk not so subtly about racism and stuff in this thing. And that's kind of the ongoing problem with Supergirl, is that I want to see Supergirl punch a big robot. That's what I tune into the show for. I want to see something like that. And then it's like we've got 15 other, social justice issues that we have to deal with. Jean and his dad are masquerading as black men in society, which I guess comforts them as they're Martians, which is a persecuted race on their planet. And then you have the feminist things going on with the president, and then Lena and Samantha, the working mom, and then you got stuff going on with the lesbian storyline that was going on for the past season and a half. It's like, just when Supergirl focused on the comic book side of the genre, it was really something. Remember Banshee? Banshee was an excellent character. She hasn't come back since, what was it, the first season? Oh no, it was the first season with the Flash. That episode, we haven't seen her since then. I don't know. I mean, there's a lot of comic book characters that they introduced that still haven't made a sophomore appearance, and that's part of the problem with Supergirl this season. It has been an improvement, a marked improvement over last season. All right, so let's finish this one up here. We're taking a little too long. Again, I start to get very verbose, so to speak. But so the Toyman has a new apprentice, apprentice or something that she's kind of like trying to take up his slack or whatever. And Mon-El fights this huge dinosaur, and that's probably the most action that Mon-El's seen since last season. I was glad to see they actually did something. He was actually flying or floating, I guess, to be accurate. Supergirl in the plastic car, that was pretty funny. But the thing I didn't understand is that's sort of the same thing as the principle of Superman 3, where I don't understand why Superman needs to breathe. In all the other incarnations live, it's like he can be in space and not breathe, but all of a sudden you put him in a plastic bubble and he can't breathe. And it's the same thing here. You put Supergirl in the plastic bubble and all of a sudden she can't breathe. And I don't know why she couldn't get out of it either. I mean, that was another thing that was interesting. I mean, it wasn't laced with kryptonite, was it? I don't think so. And it wasn't in a solar red sun radiation surrounding. So I don't know. I don't know. So it's up to Wynn's mom to save the day, and she ends up knocking out new toy man or new toy person or whatever. Anyhow, Mon carries on, so to speak. He's going to carry on carrying on. Wynn and Mom patch things up and get back together. Everything's fine. Kara kind of shuts Mon-El down, but I don't know. Anyhow, Mon's costume is going to be coming up. That's something that we've seen in promo photos, which I don't have here, but that's going to be exciting. Carl Lumley's character owns up to his memory loss to Jean and gets that all out in the open. All episode, James has been hunting Lena, and at the end of the episode, we find out that she's been busy with Sam and trying to get, tests and stuff on her because of her rain problem. So all in all, let's see. I will give this episode, I don't know. This is tough. Let's see. I'm going to give it 4 stars out of 5. I don't know. Maybe that's a little too much. Maybe that's being generous. But I'm going to say 4 stars out of 5. Maybe because I'm just so happy to see Supergirl again after being gone for so long. But yeah, I'll say 4 stars out of 5. All right. 3.5 stars out of 5 maybe. But one or the other. All right, but let's move on now because that was plenty of time to spend on that episode. It's just a so-so episode, really. 3.5 stars out of 5 is much more appropriate. Pretty much the same feelings all across the board here. I mean, all these episodes this week were sort of just mediocre enough. And coming in here on The Flash, where DeVoe calls dibs on Ralph. You see what I did there? Dibney and the... Okay. Barry and Ralph are sent to check out the bus. Now, I don't know if they've done this before, but they apparently are looking for clues finally in this bus, which is where the metahumans were all transformed into metahumans. Now, Barry, the whole crux of the story is Barry is explaining to Ralph that to be a hero, you don't kill. And he explains it very well. He says, if you have the powers that we do, killing isn't a resort. You don't need to kill. Now, again, this mirrors my opinion on that subject for superheroes killing identically. I mean, if superheroes have these kind of powers, there's no need for them to kill. Now, there are certain heroes that are anti-heroes that'll kill, like the Punisher and maybe Wolverine to an extent. Although even him, I think he has to have he's got to have an honorable kill in order to be satisfactorily kill. I don't think he just kills from from frustration, from a place of just wanting to kill. I think he kills from a place of, if it's the honorable thing to do in the situation. Maybe that's just my interpretation of it. But so the story basically revolves around Ralph wanting to kill DeVoe if they can because he feels his life is threatened. Understandably, he's concerned, but Barry tells him that you can't kill the villain if you're the superhero because you have the obligation to use your powers, for lack of a better term, responsibly. So, meanwhile, Harry's still working with the thinking cap, and he uses this thinking cap to come up with a tuning fork to blast DeVoe, and this also reinforces Ralph's desires to kill DeVoe now that they have this weapon that could potentially do it. Side plot: we've got Caitlin learning to transform into Killer Frost medically, because honestly, they have done a complete disservice to Killer Frost this entire season. I started with high hopes about it because the idea of this, this season was supposed to be the fun season, and they're not, doing the fun thing with anybody but Killer Frost, and Killer Frost is the only character that really should have had the dramatic gravitas this season. They're portraying her sort of as like the drunk aunt who's the life of the party, but then again, you talk bad about her behind her back. You know what I mean? That's basically what Killer Frost has been reduced to. She leaves notes to Caitlin, and Caitlin leaves notes to her back. What the heck? This is supposed to be like, this could have been a drama that would make you cry your eyes out. At least it would be in my hands. If I wrote this story, heaven knows this would have been something that would have made your Aunt Hattie cry her eyes out. But instead, it's become a source of humor. She had to find a way to be able to turn into Killer Frost because she didn't want, to cut herself anymore or have Cisco, get her angry or whatever. So they're trying to turn Killer Frost into a superhero. That's basically what it is. They're trying to make her a character that is going to power up every time Flash and Cisco go out there. And while that's admirable, that's doing a disservice to the character. That is not portraying the character as she was meant to be. Because the problem is Killer Frost is not a superhero. Now, maybe they could have her be an anti-hero or something and do things for her own point of view or for her own satisfaction, but certainly not to just costume up and help the good guys. That's not what she does. But here, Caitlin and Frost are pen pals. I don't get it. It's just a complete retardation of the concept, and it's very sad. All right, so anyhow, I'm spending a long time on this one again, but they try to find the final bus meta, which is Edwin Gauss, I believe his name was, and he's some kind of portal breacher, not quite like Cisco, but he falls in and out of time breaches or something and goes from here to there. Very, very, not a power that you would think would be so important to DeVoe, but that's what we have. So they catch him, they bring him back. Meanwhile, subplot again, Harry's got the thinking cap and is clearly going out of his mind with, addiction. He's addicted to this thinking cap. And this was nice that they actually gave Joe something important to do, which wasn't ridiculous. We'll get to that in a few minutes. But Joe is very concerned, and being, sort of the father figure of the whole team, apart from Harry, he goes to Harry and tells him that he's obviously addicted. And, at first he tries to broach the subject, discreetly, and he asks to borrow the thinking cap and so forth. And, quite obviously, Harry is addicted to it. And Joe sees him going into the room. I don't know if there's much made of that. I thought that was important. I had to mark that as a note because I thought maybe that was going to lead to something. But because Harry obviously knows how to get into that room, and I thought it was only a room that, they knew how to get into because, but maybe he was in there before. I don't know. In season 3, I don't remember. All right, so Edwin tells Ralph that he saw DeVoe, so they know where to find him or whatever. Let's see. There was a fight. There was a fight scene between the Flash and Elongated Man, which was pretty cool because now Elongated Man wants to go and kill DeVoe. He uses like a big mallet or something. That was pretty cool. But the Flash ends up knocking him out, beating him, or whatever. Now, Ralph still doesn't want to listen. He wants to protect the team because he's afraid that the team's going to be taken away from him, and that's sort of like the only thing he has now. But Barry doesn't want to sacrifice his principles. So he basically decides to use Ralph's plan without him. They're going to breach in now that they know where he is, but they're not going to kill him, but they're going to use the tuning fork or whatever. Now, DeVoe turns out to be only a hologram, and DeVoe and Maurice end up taking this opportunity to invade Star Labs. Now, this was pretty cool. Well, this was interesting. The earpiece that becomes a bomb from Iris. That's kind of dangerous, don't you think, Iris? I mean, you tap that thing the wrong way. Isn't that going to blow your head off? I don't know. But anyhow, Joe takes on a samurai robot in sword fight and wins. Now, when I first started this show, if you would have told me I was going to see Joe West fighting a samurai robot with a sword and winning, I probably wouldn't have believed you. But, hey, it's Joe, the guy can do it. I mean, he brings it, I guess. I don't know. Meanwhile, Iris takes on the mechanic. We forget that's her superhero name, or her supervillain name, but Maurice. And she takes a sword through the chest, and she still wins. So again, like I said, this episode, I mean, it's kind of heavy on the action, but it's kind of stretching credulity with me all around. And I don't know. I mean, Barry's the only one that can't win in this team. I don't know what it is, at least in this family, in the West Allen family. All right, so meanwhile, Ralph takes the tuning fork that he's hidden in his chest, and we think he's going to kill DeVoe, but he actually doesn't kill DeVoe. Let's see. Now, DeVoe ends up zapping Ralph and taking over his body now, and apparently Ralph is dead. I doubt that's going to happen. I don't think they went that far into creating Ralph on his hero's journey only to have him get killed off. But, it was a sad moment. It was sad. And the reason why I didn't like this was, you could say it was a tragedy, that this was something tragic that happens in life. You do the right thing and you get punished for it. But it felt to me like the show was validating Ralph's stance on kill them all while you can. And they're basically saying, well, Ralph was right. If you would have killed DeVoe when you had the chance, they wouldn't have a problem now, would they? It's sort of like, Dark Helmet. The, bad will always win because good is stupid. I mean, that's what it kind of is making it seem like. Instead of being a triumph that Ralph finally became the best part of himself and went to a level that was beyond him before. He assumed that better nature. But instead, it's sort of like, well, I did the right thing, and as you might expect, the bad guy's going to take advantage of him and kill him and take over his body. Just didn't sit well with me at all. I didn't like the way that was portrayed, or at least the way it came off. I mean, maybe, like I said, there was a way of doing it, but I didn't like it. Now, with Ralph's body, DeVoe blasts the trio that we see up here on the screen here. And let's see. Oh, well, that's the other thing. We have to also point out that Harry went into the room there with the thinking cap and also boosted up with dark matter power. Now, this is something that Cisco warned him against, and this is something that's probably going to have consequences. I really don't want to see Harry get killed off. A lot of people are speculating that maybe Cisco will leave the show. I don't think that was really a, I think that's a red herring, let's put it that way, because there's been no talk about this as being something that Carlos Valdez wants to leave the show. And I think what's going to happen at the end of the season, he's going to leave Cisco, but he'll be back at the beginning of the next season. This is one of those things like Barry leaving the show because he's going into the Speed Force or something like that. They're going to end it like that, but they're not going to. They're not going to write out Cisco. I don't believe it. Not for a minute. Um, I'm more afraid that Harry's going to die. I think something's going to happen to him. I don't know if it's going to be something that stretches on to the next season, but apparently something is going to happen to him. Something's up. DeVoe, apparently when he blasts the three of them, he cures Caitlin of frost. And now she's conflicted because, like I said, originally this was something that she was supposed to struggle to keep out of control. Now she's her pen pal. Now she doesn't want her gone. And it's kind of a strange thing that wasn't focused on enough that they were going to bring her about that way. And they could have brought her about that way and made it interesting, but I don't know. I don't know where they go from here. Barry packs Ralph's office, and he doesn't want to be bothered by Iris. We've been saying that all season. Did I say that? I don't know. Meanwhile, DeVoe says something about the plan, that the thinking cap is not real. Something to that effect. I don't know. I might have missed something, but apparently something's up with the thinking cap that DeVoe has got his sticky little fingers into. So this was a decent episode, but still, this one I would probably give it 4 stars out of 5. Supergirl 3.5, but this one probably was more entertaining because, like I said, they had more of the action adventure, they had more of the fights and this and that. But I do think that when push comes to shove, the story has failed the way they presented it. I don't know, it just didn't sit right with me. So I'm going to say 4 stars out of 5, but we'll see. We'll see. Maybe they'll bounce back from this. I don't know. That's it for the Flash this week. All right, let's take a look at Krypton. Now let's see Krypton. All right. I'm taking these in the order that they are listed here on my notes, but heaven knows. This is I believe this episode was one of the better episodes this week. I was kind of not satisfied with the CW shows, but between AOS and Krypton, I think we had some pretty good episodes. But Krypton, I think, is going to take second place this week. But this was a good episode. It's called The House of Zod. And by the end of the episode, you'll find we have an heir to the House of Zod. It sounds like to an heir to the House of Frankenstein. No, an heir to the House of Zod. We'll find that out in a minute. Now, we get flashbacks to Jaina's childhood here. Jaina, of course, is the mother of Lyda, the Zod family. And she's training with her young brother. I don't know if he's the younger brother, but they train and fight. And this goes on. And she seems more ruthless than him. She takes to these lessons a lot stronger than her brother does. And apparently, this rivalry between them goes on through many years into their young adulthood or whatever. And the flashback takes us to a journey to the Jeweled Mountains, which is something old school from the Silver Age of Superman comics, which I appreciated hearing a lot. And the brother tries to double cross her and stab her in the back, so to speak, by taking one of the oxygen masks, because they both need one, but they only have enough air for one person to make the full journey. So he pledges to kill her and make it easier for her. She doesn't like this though, and she ends up, I don't know, breaking his leg or something, and she makes it back in one piece and becomes the heir to the House of Zod, and her father, makes her like sort of the head honcho. Nothing is said about what happens to the brother, but it seems like you see Jaina practicing on a holographic opponent, which looks like it could be her brother had he survived, or maybe as he looks now, if he comes back, he'll look like that. I wasn't sure. I think that's what they were suggesting, but I don't know. But that was an interesting subplot. See, like I said, last week was flat out boring. Give me something that's going to hold my interest. That storyline alone, the flashbacks alone, held my interest. And so, we're halfway through. This is only a short 10-episode season, so we're halfway through the season. this is where the rubber meets the road, so to speak. All right, so Seg is in the labyrinth, and he finds a woman trapped. He helps her to escape, and they run into her people, and they take him hostage because they apparently don't like the elves, which I don't know why. I don't know if we missed something there, but meanwhile, Lyta's beau visits her in jail. Now, I always forget this guy's name. I think it's Dem R, something like that. I can't remember his name, but he's a good actor too. This guy. I like that all the Kryptonians here, they're all with a British accent. It makes it feel a lot more like sort of like Donner's Superman, even though Donner's Superman, they didn't really all speak with a British accent, but you kind of get the feeling that this is from another world. This is another planet where everybody speaks with a British accent. And they speak some Kryptonian or Kryptonese or something in here, but when they're speaking English, it's very British sounding, proper English, which is good. All right, so Nyssa is still scheming to get her dad to help her go against the voice of Raoul, which they completely dropped the subplot of the voice of Raoul. Remember last week we saw the Brainiac probe taking him over? We don't know diddly squat about what's going on with him in this episode. But Nyssa's trying to get Jaina on her side, and she wants Daddy Vex's, help to try to sway Jaina to their side of the coup, so to speak. Seg is brought before the Frost Queen. I'm not sure exactly where this comes from, but she's sort of the head honcho of those mountain dwellers or something. I don't know. It just felt very Lord of the Rings-ish or something. But they agree to heal Seg's wounded arm. Vex goes to see, Daddy Vex. He goes to see the woman that's putting the finger on Lyda, and he basically throws her under the bus and assassinates her with the I don't know, with his guard or something. It was strange because he actually had feelings for her, and he just like throws her under the bus because Nyssa thinks it was the right thing to do, and so he's pretty much going by her now, and he basically sells himself to her plan. No matter what, now he's stuck with her because he says basically, the voice of Raoul's going to want our blood if they don't get Lyta's blood. And so Nyssa is really adamant that they put all their chips on rescuing Nyssa. Well, long story short, when push goes to shove, after a couple of attempts to get Jaina on the bandwagon, Jaina finally does back down and agrees to throw in with Nyssa. And she's on the hook now, and Lyta's off the hook, and they stay the execution, which was a pretty tense moment, pretty tense scene. All right, so the woman that Seg helps, name is Riker, I think. Number one. No, not that Riker, but anyhow, Seg gets her to help him escape because he obviously helped her, and so she gets him a mask, an oxygen apparatus or something, and he's out in the cold again, and he passes out in the cold again. That's all this kid does is run around in the snow. He spent more time in the snow than Luke Skywalker on Hoth. He's in need of a tauntaun's belly by the end of this episode. But anyhow, Jaina, and this was kind of nice, Jaina and Lyta have a moment, and Jaina still is like a tough cookie. She's not going to like forget that she's on the hook now, and she basically tells Lyta as much. So it was a nice scene for a few seconds there anyway. So anyhow, Seg gets the call out to Adam Strange, who really had nothing to do this episode, but Adam goes to Lyta to try to get help to form a posse. Very Flash Gordon-ish. Flash Gordon's bouncing between camps. I mean, first he's in the Black Zero camp, and then he's in like the Frost Queen's camp, then he's still back out in the snow, and then now we've got like Dr. Zarkov and Dale Arden coming to find him. That's what it reminded me of anyway. So a very strange scene where Adam is like in the locker room of the guys, and we get some butt shot in the show. I don't know why that was there, what that was needed for. I don't know. Kind of strange, kind of unexpected. I don't know what to make of it, and I'm moving on. All right, so Lyta goes to Nyssa. She wants the inside dope. and well, that's when Adam comes and calls her off. Now he gives her like the last words, the last will and testament of Seg, and that's kind of what convinces her. I don't know. Anyhow, Walter Steele finds them. You know, the Walter Steele guy. We're gonna find out what his real name is in a minute. Don't worry. It's gonna be happy. It's gonna surprise you. It's gonna make you happy. Anyhow, Walter Steele finds him, and he wants Riker back because he says it's the only way to stop Brainiac. Lyta and Adam save Seg, and Lyta fights Walter to a standstill, and he stops fighting her long enough because he sees the necklace that she has on, which is the necklace that Jana's father gave her, and apparently she gave to her. And he was wearing the same one, and she said, "You know, where do you get that necklace?" And he says, "My mother gave it to me." So apparently, this Black Zero soldier or whatever he is General Zod, the actual General Zod from Superman Legacy there in the future, and he's come back to the past to try to somehow influence what's going to happen in the future. So this is an interesting turn of events. I see a lot of people are writing off the show because, frankly, the last couple episodes were pretty lightweight, but still, you know, this is pretty interesting now. We've got General Zod on the show. And the guy that plays Walter Steele, you know, I don't like race-changing characters or anything, but he does give off the vibe of a good General Zod. You know, if you can't give the kneel before Zod line and make it convincing, you don't have any business playing General Zod. I would buy Walter Steele saying kneel before Zod. I'm not sure. I don't remember his name, the actor, but you know, he's good. He's from Arrow. Anyway, so things are looking up. Let's see. Brainiac about to appear in the next episode, and we also have Doomsday name dropped. So we'll hear about that. This one, solid 4.5 out of 5. Solid 4.5 stars out of 5. Maybe I'd give it 5 stars if I didn't see that guy's butt. Okay, so we'll be back after these messages and a word from our sponsor while I take another sip of water. This is WJTV. Johnny Torch Live. Okay, so let us move on now, and hopefully we'll bounce the rest of these out a little bit faster than I did with those last two, but a lot on my mind with these episodes. All right, this one we've got the final episode this season of Black Lightning. Black Lightning, final episode of the season. And again, this is another CW show, not exactly up to snuff. When you think about it, the problem with the CW shows, particularly as we said, Supergirl, is there's a lot of, you know, for lack of a better term, SJW topics. I mean, with Black Lightning, of course, racism is one of the prominent storylines. Of course, we've got police brutality and police targeting, so to speak. I forget the other term they use for that, but profiling, excuse me. And so this, one of the big problems is with the villain here, Proctor, I think his name is. One of the most ham-fisted racist caricatures since Simon Legree, since Uncle Tom's Cabin. Because they even have him saying, "I want to make America great again," not once, but twice in this episode. Twice. I mean, you're not, you know, writing a little too much on the nose, are you? You know, Black Lightning writers, come on, you gotta back off a little bit. You gotta let people breathe. I mean, you know. All right, but let's get to this. So we got flashbacks of Jefferson and his father, which were nice. These are the things he remembers about his father before he was killed. Jeff's dad has a confrontation with Gamby because Gamby was like trying to get him to back off the story because I think he was a reporter, and that's what ended up doing him in. Sort of very Ben Urich-ish, at least from the Daredevil Netflix. And we see Jeff using his power for the first time. It manifests during a riot where he's like about, I don't know, 12 years old or something, and Gamby comes to his aid when he faints from a power shortage or whatever in the electric fence, and the police are chasing him. So that kind of shows a little bit of what the backstory between them two are. We finally get some exposition in the show because Gamby tries to explain to Jen about Tobias's powers. and he takes a drug that makes him age slowly, but also gives him the powers of 3 men. So I guess he won't be throwing cars around anytime soon, but he is pretty strong. That his sidekick's name is Cyanide. He took her when she was young, took her in, and made her an assassin. I don't believe she has any powers. I don't remember that. But meanwhile, Khalil is dubbed Painkiller by Tobias. And like I said, I dubbed Tobias White Chocolate. He doesn't have a code name. It's just Tobias. He should have a code name. That should be it. I don't know. I don't know. I just get a kick out of it because I think they pretty much confirm now that, he's black. It's just these albino, which I didn't know black people could be albino. I guess it makes sense. I don't look into the biology of it, so I mean, I don't know if this is just a comic book construct or whatever. But at first, I guess they want to leave you hanging that you don't know because he's always acting like these Negroes always give me trouble, and you kind of feel like, well, was he just like a racist, white guy or something? But apparently, he's black, and it's just that skin condition he has that makes him appear white. So I don't know. That's an interesting thing that it's like they don't want to talk about it too much because I think the actor is white, obviously. So they don't want to kind of like say, well, this is like blackface kind of, where you're having a white person portray a black character. I don't know. Interesting. I mean, I don't know. Stop and think about it. It's interesting. All right. So Lynn was talking to Jeff when he was unconscious. That was very nice. That was very touching. We got kind of that scene here in this thing. Tobias flattens Lala. That's my favorite part of the whole episode. He flattens Lala. Lala comes in and starts mouthing off to him. He just decks him, sends him flying across the room. I loved it. That cracked me up. He just comes walking right over to him. Bam! It was just so funny. And I like Lala, too, so it's not really like I wanted to see him get decked, but it's like, what's coming. It's Tobias Whale. And it was just so funny. He dubs him Tattoo Man because, like I said, he's given everybody names, and he tries to explain. This is another thing where maybe either they would have explained this better earlier in the season, or they should have had more episodes in the show in order to explain some of these things without it making it sound too, descriptive. Too. I just used the word too, and I can't remember, but. Expositional. All right, we'll go with that. All right, so he tells him that whatever sorcery he used to bring him back, all his deaths are going to be imprinted on him like a tattoo. A big waste though, because they send him. Tobias sends him to the CIA guy, but it's a trap, and Lala blows up. Killing a bunch of FBI agents, but not Proctor, which is disappointing because Lala I thought was a good villain, and they had some kind of interesting thing there where they could have worked on that. I don't know how they're going to get him away from being blown up. So I think he's done. I don't know. They probably shouldn't even have brought him back in the first place. They should just left him where he was. But I liked Lala before he got these weird psycho powers or whatever he has. I don't know. Let's see. Jeff, meanwhile, is still unconscious and he's still having these flashbacks of his father. And he sees his father while he's a grown man now. He's like speaking to him as if he were still alive now. It's a very interesting thing where they have this ancestral thing that's gone on through all black characters this year. I mean, when you think about Black Panther, he goes back to see his ancestors, his father. Vixen was on like her own version of the spirit plane to speak to her ancestors. I think it was her great grandmother, or was it her grandmother? I don't know. And then here, Black Lightning's on his own spiritual journey where he's talking to his father, and it's a very interesting thing that it's, I guess, a cultural thing maybe that they are all rooted in something about talking to the ancestors. Very interesting. All right, so they get made because I forget who makes them, but the Proctor's men are coming up. Jen freaks out, and Jeff wakes up. So I don't know if I mentioned that, but Jeff wakes up, and Gambi has a plan, but Jeff has no powers. Jen freaks out and sort of reignites Jeff's powers with she hugs him with her electronic abilities or whatever. And a pretty cool soundtrack in this episode too, especially Earth, Wind, and Fire. You can't go wrong with Earth, Wind, and Fire. And they play Shining Star, where they take out all these black ops agents. They apparently are not government agents because they work for Proctor. Gambit makes that clear. Thunder gets stuck in a force field and Black Lightning saves her. This is just really cool. I feel bad that Jennifer doesn't get in on this season. I guess that's where they left a couple of things on the table. We don't know what's going to happen to those kids in the cocoons. That's kind of left on the table as well. Gambi and Lynn also take out some guys. Jen takes out a guy. Painkiller, who is Khalil, takes out the Black Ops, and Whale goes after Proctor in his headquarters. Meanwhile, the family gets away, and they corner Proctor, and Gambi kills him. I think that's kind of a strange situation there. It's like they all surround him, and so he obviously knows his secret identity, and that was kind of an important plot point where they were trying to keep the secret identity away from him. But in whatever case, we all knew that he was going to have to get killed, and it's no big loss either because, honestly, he was an aggravating character, and I couldn't stand him. And I think it was by design, but still, Gambi kills him. I don't know that I agree with Gambi killing him in front of the girls and Lynn, but I mean, at least in front of the two teenagers, you kind of would think that he would find a different way to resolve the situation. But, once they had it known that Jeff was the Black Lightning, then, there's nothing else you can do with him. So it's just sort of a happily ever after at the end there where you see them going off back home, the family. And Whale gets a case of green light, I guess, apparently, at the end of it. He got the case away from, and that was pretty funny, too. He has the guy on the floor, the agent or whatever on the floor, and he's, like, throwing stuff at him. He's, like, so ticked off. It was really funny. I think I love Tobias Whale being, the way he is. He's just, like, he's got, like, a temper that's pretty amusing, to say the least. I'd like to see more of them. And they kind of didn't do the big villain showdown. They did a little of that last week, but all right, so I'm going to give this one 4 stars out of 5. I don't know, maybe 3.5 stars out of 5. Here I go. I don't know. I'm kind of vacillating between two options here. Yeah, a little sloppy. It's kind of a little sloppy, that episode, even though it was enjoyable. So that's the thing. If it's enjoyable, that's fine, but you still got to take down a peg for being sloppy. Like I said, there's a lot of exposition. They didn't really tie up too well. I'm going to give it 3.5 stars out of 5. But again, a better than average episode. All right, let's kind of move on here because we've taken a lot of time. We're going to be doing a 2-hour broadcast here today if I don't let's see, if I don't cool it. All right, next up we have Gotham. And this was another one that was jam-packed full of stuff. They had so many subplots on this one to try to deal with. This is going to take me all day, too. Let's see. All right, this was mostly revolving around... Oh, that's the wrong one. I got the wrong image up. Well, all right, since I already got this up, we'll do this one first. We're whizzing around here because I pressed the wrong button. But here we go. All right, we'll do Arrow first. Arrow is... Because they had almost the same picture for both of them. Okay. This one was mostly about the Dragon, Richard Dragon, which in this show they call him Ricardo Diaz, and I don't know why in the comics I guess he was Richard Dragon. But you can hear his story about how he became a dragon. Apparently he was tormented as a kid, being bullied, and it's a good exercise on the effect bullying has on kids because the guy ends up becoming a serial killer, drug dealer, and generally unpleasant fellow, all because of bullying. So, more has to be done, I guess, if you want to, really think of the moral of the story in this episode. Anyhow, this one is not too difficult to explain. Diaz and Black Siren are, together. I don't know if they're together, but they're together. They want to merge with this Quadrant, I think it's called, which is a gangster he has to set up a meeting with. The son of the gangster sort of gives him, like an ultimatum. They want him to spy on this guy. Then he wants him to kill this guy. Black Siren's like pushing his buttons, saying that he's a dog being taught to fetch and roll over and this and that, which obviously doesn't sit well with Diaz. But he plays along long enough until finally, when he gets the gangster stoolie or whatever, then this gangster kid tries to kill him. And obviously that's not something that's going to endear him to Diaz. So fortunately he has a bulletproof vest. and he goes back after this guy, tortures him for shooting him, gets the information that he needs, goes to the meeting place where he wanted to be in the first place, and blows up the kid and a group of people as well. Now, the big shot gangster obviously is not going to take this too well because he just blew up his son, but he kind of sweet talks the other members of the table. And when the gangster guy protests, he kills him. Now, Black Siren is strange in this one because she basically canary cried a guy's brain into jelly. And obviously, she's appearing squeamish in this episode that she's well, because at the very end, now that he's actually made something of himself, Dragon, he goes back to kill his childhood tormentor by setting him on fire in front of Black Siren and everybody. And Black Siren's kind of squeamish about this. But the thing is, they seem to be trying to put her on the verge of a face turn. But nothing she's done has warranted it. She's killed ruthlessly in cold blood several times now. As I said, she completely destroyed the vigilante's brain by canary crying him. And now she's kind of like, oh, violence. I don't like violence in the world, and I'm going to steer away from it. But that's kind of strange. You already have killed in cold blood half a dozen times in the show, at least. I suppose they want to say that Quentin's being a good influence on her, but it's a tough sell. It's a tough sell. Meanwhile, we got the subplot. Like I said, very briefly to get through this one because there's very little. It's much ado about nothing this episode, really. Curtis is back with Felicity as work buddies, and they get caught up on the Helix project, whatever. Felicity's worried about Oliver, and they see on the news report that he's arrowing out there somewhere. When she goes back home, Oliver comes home, or he's already there, and he promises to always come back again, like he promised William. Is more illicity pandering, so to speak. But not a whole lot of Oliver, not a whole lot of Green Arrow. We get a couple of brief shots of a stunt double. Let's be honest, it was a stunt double doing some fighting on television, but I don't know. I mean, Diaz isn't really that compelling of a villain. I mean, you don't really need to see a whole episode on him. I mean, you gave me a whole episode on, I don't know, pick any of these other villains. It would be more compelling. I don't really think there's that much for Diaz. Nothing too substantive about his character that needs more exploration. This could have been handled in a subplot, that took 15 minutes instead of like a pretty long, drawn out hour. The actor's good, though. I don't know the actor's name, but the one who plays Diaz is convincing as a, thug who made good of the thug lifestyle. I'm going to give this one 3 stars out of 5. That's 3 stars out of 5 for Arrow. And we're speeding it up a little bit. Like I said, Gotham's going to be a little bit longer probably because it's a little bit more of a complex episode. But that was what we were originally going to go to before I clicked the wrong button. So let's go to Gotham next. Let's see if I can find the corresponding. There we go. All right, so this episode, again, was kind of all over the place. I mean, it's about Babs basically being tested by the League of Shadows. I think they're the League of Shadows here. They're not the League of Assassins. Tabitha goes to Selena and Bruce for help, which is kind of strange. Maybe Selena she was trying to go to for, but what is Selena going to do about this? I don't know. The League of Shadows uses Bruce's blood to restore Roz to life, and Roz is not happy with the situation. He looks like, evil Ash from Army of Darkness. That's what he looked like to me. They don't really let you get a good look at him because he's basically a reanimated corpse. But that was pretty good. The subplot is Jim and Harv are trying to find out who knocked over 5 banks in one night. Of course, it's Lee and Ed / the Riddler, excuse me. And Lee gives the money to the poor, which is interesting. The Riddler doesn't really put up much of a protest because he's got grander plans than this. But he suspects that Lee is not for real, that she's just using him basically, and she's not really protesting that too loudly. Meanwhile, Oswald and Butch want in because, they see him feathering his nest and they want a piece of the action. Lee wants him out, but Oz plants doubts in the Riddler's mind over Lee. Meanwhile, Roz goes back to Barbara, and he calls her a sad, deluded woman, which I thought was a good, nod to Adam West. That was pure '60s Batman. Come on, let's admit it. Um, he wants his power back, but she refuses, and the League of Shadows tries to stop him, but he kills them all, or at least whatever, 90% of them. Bruce saves her in the Proto Batmobile. Now he's been elevated to a getaway driver in this episode, Bruce. Jim goes to question Lee, but he gets nowhere with her. She doesn't tell him anything. Bruce is the one that has to kill Roz again, I suppose, so they go to get the knife that can kill him. Alfred and Tabitha pull a ruse that was pretty humorous for Selina and Bruce to steal the knife while they're trying this ruse. Now, the Riddler confronts Ed about the doubts that he has about Lee, and Oswald's words are confirmed or reinforced by Ed. Ed seems to think that Oswald is right. It's very interesting that they are doing this with the Riddler, because this really should have been Two-Face's whole storyline. But unfortunately, they dropped Harvey Dent like a hot potato, and they gave the storyline to the Riddler, which, while he's been doing very good with it, it's kind of. I've never thought of the Riddler as a split personality. I don't know. So anyway, Tabitha threatens Alfred with being shot, and Selina gives Barbara the knife. Now, this is strange because for some reason, and she goes with them, which is another thing that's strange. But this is strange on two counts. Now, later on, Selina doesn't like the idea and decides to go back to Bruce and Alfred, which I don't understand why she went with them in the first place, because obviously that's what her plan was. They were going to stab Roz. And then she gets like disillusioned and like, well, that's all you were going to do if I gave you the knife, was to try to stab Roz? Well, what did you think she was going to do? That was kind of the only option she had. So she goes back to Bruce and Alfred, and it makes even less sense that Bruce and Alfred are angry with her for giving the knife to Barbara, because basically she just saved Alfred's life. I certainly don't think Tabitha was bluffing when they threatened to kill Alfred if she didn't give him the knife. So that was kind of strange. Now, meanwhile, the Riddler goes back to Penguin and asks to join forces. Now, this is interesting. So they go to rob a bank, the four of them, and not Ed, but the Riddler, excuse me, tells the Penguin that he knows he's right and that they have to double cross Lee. So they go to the bank and double cross Lee, but then Riddler pulls a fast one on them and double crosses Penguin and Butch, getting them locked in the prison while they rob the bank. So it's kind of an interesting thing that happens here, and it's kind of hard to figure out exactly how, because we're skipping around here a little bit, but it's hard to understand how Riddler and Lee are actually a thing, I guess, and then it's not put on from Lee. I don't know. But anyhow, Jim gets there, and Lee gives herself up in order for Riddler to get away, which is another strange thing. I don't understand that. Now Lee is a wanted felon. Isn't Riddler already a wanted felon? If they're going to have to break somebody out of jail, shouldn't it be Riddler? I don't know what that plan is and why they did that. All right, so to wrap up, let's see. All right, so Babs summons Roz by the glowy hand there for a showdown, and Roz beats her in this contest of champions or whatever, and he stabs her, but she's healed by her glow power. Roz threatens Tabitha, and she's killed until Babs apparently reverses time. I didn't know if this was supposed to be a scene in her mind where she imagined that Roz killed her or not, but I don't know. He kills her, and she comes back to life, and they replay the scene over again. And this time, Barbara gives up the power because she doesn't want to kill Tabitha, or she doesn't want to have Tabitha killed. So the League of Shadows people are surrounding, and they won't let anyone interfere in this fight. But Bruce ends up coming in, which I should have mentioned earlier. But Bruce offers to kill Roz again, but Roz declines the offer and breaks the knife, which apparently means he can't be killed now. So this was interesting. I guess Roz had to come back because he's a classic Batman villain. And I guess technically now Bruce didn't kill ever in his life now that Roz came back and Bruce kind of killed, but it didn't take, I guess. It's kind of strange because even they said, oh, Selena says something like, oh, we don't want you to become a dirtbag again, so to speak, or whatever. Because apparently that's the reaction it has on him killing people. I don't know. So the League of Shadows people stick with Babs. And Bruce and Selena have a moment that's interrupted by Roz, and he explains he wants to mold Bruce into the Dark Knight. Ooh. So again, this one is it's a serviceable episode. I don't know. Serviceable episode. I don't know, 3.5 stars out of 5. I'll say 3.5 stars out of 5. And we will move on to, let's see, what is left? We've only got a few episodes. Oh, we're going to go to the episode of the week now. We can't forget this one. We can't go without this one. This is the episode of the week. You've got Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Ruby Riots. Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. As we bid a fond farewell to Dove Cameron. All right. So when we last left our intrepid band, Talbot was Winter Soldierized. And I kind of can't believe that Phil didn't know that or couldn't foresee something about that. But the thing is he's been so busy, he hasn't been able to watch Civil War yet, apparently. Because, he's got enough experience that you think he'd be able to sense that. Because they're letting him run wild throughout the base or whatever. He goes sneaking into Robin's room. And I'm glad he didn't kill Robin's mother, because Robin's mother is apparently dead in the future. But he came very close to killing her, and he kidnaps Robin. We'll get back to that plot line in a second. But the A plot is more with Ruby. She and Von Strucker are forcing Fitzsimmons to fix the machine that they sabotaged. That's why they went there to sabotage. Meanwhile, Yo-Yo, it makes it back to the plane. Anton's dead, the Russian guy that was a robot, or at least mostly. And Yo-Yo is still suffering from her arms being shorted out, her robotic arms, because the robotic arms don't take to speed too well. It doesn't function well with her inhuman abilities. Coulson and May, they have an incomplete conversation about what went down last episode. That was pretty funny. Phil approves of Daisy's leadership, which I'm not sure if I approve of her leadership. She seems more of like a Nick Fury leader, where it's kind of difficult to gauge where she's coming from with some of these decisions. This was also very funny. It was a lot of funniness in this episode, considering it's so deep and dark. But Phil and Matt confront Deke on his love of Daisy, and Deke tells the story about the lemons, which is funny. Go watch it. That was funny. May and Daisy attack Hale's compound, and she surrenders. And she basically plays along because she knows that Ruby's in over her head. And so they're both basically on the same page, her and Daisy, Hale and Daisy. Meanwhile, Ruby pummels Fitz for sabotaging the device and threatens Gemma. That was pretty intense because Fitz is like, it really physically hurts to see him get hurt. Fitz, it's the same thing that happened to him with what was that jabroni's name? I can't remember. Brett Dalton's character, I can't remember. I think I remember the actor's name more than the character. But anyhow, he used to push him around a couple episodes, and that was kind of sad too. So anyhow, to make a long story short, they finally get the pod working. Ruby goes in the pod. She gets through about 8% of the treatment before she starts freaking out. And let's see. I can't. Okay. Now she crushes Von Strucker's head, which was pretty gross. That was pretty disgusting. And that's sad because everybody and their brother tried to tell her this was going to happen. We even see Creel earlier in the episode, and he's spazzing out too because he can't take the mental images or whatever that's in his brain from the gravitronium or whatever that from the Quinn and Gravitron, whatever that guy's name was. They're in there somewhere still, and it's very strange how it affects them. But it feels like, I guess, there's a lot of brains vying for supremacy. All right, Hale and Daisy and May show up to save Fitz and Simmons. Very tense stuff going on here all at the same time. Edge of my seat stuff. Meanwhile, Phil and Mac try to stop Talbot, and they get Robin away from him, but uh, Talbot is going to turn the gun on himself. But Phil manages to counteract his orders by ordering him to turn the gun on him. He complies, and Mac tags him with, I think it was an icer. But anyhow, that was really intense stuff. That was exciting. I was afraid there. I didn't know if Talbot was going to get killed. I didn't know if maybe they were going to have another go at killing Coulson. I don't know what to think. And it really had me on the edge of my seat. Really exciting. Meanwhile, on the other side of the equation, Ruby has been Dark Phoenixed. She's floating around and throwing people around and, crying out in pain and despair. Really good performance from Dove Cameron. I thought it was pretty good. Ruby tries to crush Daisy, but Hale stops her. And then Yo-Yo kills Ruby. That was the big coup de grace that I didn't see coming. I mean, I kind of thought Ruby would have been more powerful, that she wouldn't have been able to do that, but it was just poetic. It was poetic justice. She pulled an Anakin on him. Pulled an Anakin on her where Anakin kills Count Dooku, and it was only natural. She took your arms. You wanted revenge. And that's what it seemed like. It was very poetic and kind of gross as well. For a minute there, I didn't know if her head was going to fall off the way that they had that pictured with the blood and the everything. Oh, I didn't want to think about it. But again, really intense, really exciting. And this is the edge of your seat stuff that I was waiting for all week. And it took all week for Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. to bring it up. And Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. has been very strong this season, even though not every episode was a 5-star winner like this one, but this was really edge of your seat stuff. I'm going to say 5 stars out of 5 for Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. this week. Hale goes to Orson again. At least that's what I'm calling him, because Mork and Mindy, again, watched the end of that series, whatever. But yeah, and so there's going to be some kind of apparently alien takeover, hostile takeover coming up in the next episode. So yeah, really great. I kind of wish, though, if I was going to give one complaint about this episode, I kind of wish they would have made it more clear that Ruby cut off Yo-Yo's arms, because she was wearing a mask. And we had to kind of have that thing of Yo-Yo looking at her and figuring it out and saying, well, I think that's the woman wearing that outfit was the one that cut my arms off. I think that's her. And that's kind of that kind of, that weakens it a little bit, but it was a strong showing, so I'm not going to complain. It's kind of that stupidness of the Amazing Spider-Man 2, where it's like Green Goblin's looking at Gwen Stacy, and he's looking at Spider-Man, Gwen Stacy, You must be Peter Parker, aren't you? It's kind of that thing where it's like you don't want to mess with the trope of not being able to figure out a secret identity or something. But anyway, as I said, 5 stars out of 5. Episode of the week for Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. this week. I was breathless for countless moments afterwards, and hopefully they continue on with that going forward. Okay, we've got Legion. There's never much to talk about with Legion. I guess it's only fitting that this one goes last, because I could probably wrap this up in 5 minutes. Again, it's just weirdness, but weirdness is they passed off, they traded on it, let's put it that way, last season, their weirdness. But it felt like a slightly more coherent story. Here, I imagine they're going to tie these threads together eventually, but for now, it's very, I don't know, we got all kinds of strange stuff going on. Let's see. We got the flashback, I guess, of Farouk dropping dead, and he's brought to the monks, and for some reason, the monk is the one that's got him locked under ground or something in an egg tomb or something. I don't know. The bug gets in the Paul's ear, I guess. The black guy, that's what his name is, Paul, I think. I don't know. The Carries eat dinner together for some reason. Bill Irwin is trying to make the other Carrie eat and poop, and I don't know what that was all about. Apparently one of the teeth chatterers escaped, because they got a big room full of teeth chattering people that have been, I don't know, taken over by Farouk. I don't know. David goes back into the pool of weird trips. He meets Lenny, who wants to get out. She kills herself with a bubble gun or something that I don't know. David talks to Farouk there at his estate in the pool of weird trips. He claims not to be evil, drops Professor X's name again, which, can we get something more solid with Professor X? Because they keep dropping his name, but then the rest of the show, I tune out. I don't know. David says he'll find the monk and he'll take him to his body. The monk that'll take him to his body so that he can restore him to his body, which apparently is what Sid wants in the future, although they kind of have doubts as to whether that's a good idea or not. When he wakes up, everybody is gone but Carrie, and they find Paul chattering like them. So David and Carrie go into Paul's mind and wakes him up, which is the scene here. There's a cow wandering in the hall for no reason. I'm not sure why. The monk is on the loose, just walking around while there's brownie scouts running around outside. I don't know. They find Melanie, whose teeth chattering, and the three go into her mind, and she plays a game with them, a maze of riddles and minotaurs, and I don't know what else. That's like straight from the Batman animated series episodes with the Riddler. I don't know. He brings her out of it. They split up. Paul and Melanie split up, and David and Carrie go in the other direction. David thinks future Sid is trying to contact him. She scrolls the words hurry, or the word hurry, in letters that flashes through the whole episode until it finally adds together to be hurry. David is taken by the monks somehow in, I don't know, the astral plane or whatever. Carrie finds his other half with the chattering teeth. The monk takes over Admiral Wickerhead and the robot women with the mustaches. I don't know what's going on. So David confronts the monk on the building top, and Sid tells David to hurry from the future. David tries to get the Shadow King's body from Monk, the location, but he jumps to his death instead, and Sid becomes a teeth chatterer as well, and the episode ends with David going through the snow in an igloo was behind him. I don't know what that means either. So, again, this one, I don't know what to think of this one. I mean, I don't know what's going on. I'm going to give it 3 stars out of 5 and just close the show. That's Legion for you. I don't know. 3 stars out of 5. There's a lot of episodes where you just don't know what's going on, and it's like fun to look at, but to try to figure out what's going on is still beyond me at this point. Like I said, they're probably tied together in threads, and it's one of those things where you'll look back and say, oh yeah, I guess this is what they were trying to lead to there. But anyway, that is another exciting edition of This Week in Comic Book Television in the books. Let me know what you think in the comments below about each and every episode that we painstakingly brought to you this week. You kind of think it was a disappointing week as well? I don't know. Like I said, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., by far and away the best episode of the week. I think Krypton was a solid number 2, House of Zod. The rest of them kind of blended into the background. Flash maybe being 3rd place. I don't know. But, yeah, let me know what you think in the comments below. Make sure you check out my link in the description below for my Twitter page. I gotta put up a poll pretty soon. I haven't done a poll of the week in a while. Let's see. Next episode you can expect probably on Wednesday, as we tend to do episodes on Saturdays and Wednesdays. For the Torch News Roundup. I don't know what kind of news we've got. There's like a lot of crazy stuff going on out there. We'll talk about that when we talk about it. And the world's gone nuts. That's all I know. And we've got my link for my webpage down below as well. Check out the Adventures of Bullets Bourbon Comics. You can find my free preview. You can find the Johnny's Jukebox on the Bullets Bulletins, where we play a different song from my jukebox, my favorites, every day. Today we got the Rolling Stones up, today being April 21st. We can also check out the I can't remember what it's called. The Zazzle store. That's what I was trying to think of the word. Zazzle. We've got lots of products that I've been working on to bring to you with the Bullets Bourbon logo. And also check out the convention circuit that's on the front page. So until next we meet once again, this is your host, your humble servant. This is Johnny Torch reminding you once again, keep the flame burning brightly, and I'll be with you again real soon. On the only way to spend your Saturday here with us on Johnny Torch Live.